Many people believe that the term suicide carries the meaning of ending one's life. However, the meaning of suicide is more complex than that. Situations that complicate this meaning are people who develops the habit of smoking while knowing the possibility of developing lung cancer, or people who dies in a car crash due to driving under the influence of alcohol. This video will help clarify the philosophy of suicide.
Often, judgment is brought upon suicide due to suicide's rational comparings to the state of being alive versus the state of being dead. But we don't know the state of being dead, so it often brings a negative connotation that portrays suicide. Death is irreversible, sometimes.
No! No! Got killed by some prick. Did you steal my cat? Oh, damn! Oh, no.
And the impulses and actions towards it can often be sporadic.
There may be very different aspects of someone's life that may affect their opinion on suicide. Like if there's a person that has a religious background of Christianity, they might have a certain view on suicide due to the fact that what the Bible might say about it, or a Muslim person might have their view on suicide because of what their Quran might say about it, or an atheist might have certain views on suicide. And there are also different cultures that have different views on suicide also, like the Western culture and the other parts of the world. They might see suicide as something that doesn't really matter, or something that is forbidden, like assisted suicide. That's not really something that you see in the Western culture. So there's different parts of someone's life or views that may affect their views on suicide.
People who attempt suicide and survive are plagued by regret and will not go on to die by suicide at a later date, mostly because the attempt was more of a wake-up call, showing them how precious life is.
What is your moral perspective on suicide?
I think my moral perspective of suicide is that it's wrong.
And what is your religious background? Does that tie into your answer?
In a way, yes. My religious background is Christianity, and that does tie into my answer. But also, if you allow me, from a certain point of view, committing suicide is somewhat saying that my issues are too great to handle. While it could be, your issues may seem like it's too great to handle, but someone's issue who's also going through something that feels too great to handle keeps on pushing. You're saying it's too great to handle, let me just end it. Wow, you don't even try. Wow.
And do you think that certain lifestyles, like bad eating habits or not wearing a seatbelt when you're a reckless driver, is the same thing as committing suicide?
That's a tough one, because to me it's, in a way, from two perspectives. If I'm a person who's eating bad and I keep on eating and I know it's bad for me, in a way it is somewhat like that, but at the same time it's not as the suicide from my point of view, which is someone who says, you know what, I'm going to end my life. Usually those who want to commit suicide usually just say, you know what, let me end it. This is a way, it's a more of a progressive suicide. So.
And what would you say to someone who is contemplating suicide? Would you agree with them and their reasons, or would you try to talk them out of it?
I would disagree with them. I would try to talk to them out of it, mainly try to connect with them in a way, say I understand, but this isn't the answer.
Does that tie into your answer on your moral perspective on suicide?
Okay, I'm a Christian, but in depth, I'm SDA, which means Seventh-day Adventist. If you don't know what it is, look it up because it's a lot to learn. But being a Christian and knowing God, I just know killing yourself is a sin. And I know that when you do that, you're not automatically going to a better place. You're going somewhere that you're not supposed to be at, which is AKA hell. But I just think that this is why I'm against suicide, because it's not good for you at all. Like, you should never think about taking your life, because if you do, to me, I believe that you're not going to a better place. You're just going somewhere that you're not supposed to end up going.
What is your moral perspective on suicide?
I mean, obviously, I don't think it should be done. There's so much that a person can accomplish in their life to help other people or to help themselves or to open more doors that they thought were closed at the time before even thinking about suicide. So,
And what is your religious background? Does that tie into your answer?
my background is a Messianic Jew, Seventh-day Adventist. However, knowledge, I would say, ties more into the answer opposed to just where I was raised. So therefore, I'm kind of open canvas.
Okay. And do you think certain lifestyles like eating junk food or drinking and driving when you're a reckless driver is the same thing as committing suicide, and why?
I don't. The only reason why I say that is because if you have a lack of knowledge of what you're eating, and if it's bad for you, you're not trying to hurt yourself, so to speak. I think that everybody has an opportunity to be able to study certain things and come up with their own idea of how they should live, so that way they can live healthy. However, in certain circumstances, there are people who do eat a certain way and they can live a lot longer than people who don't. So you can't really regulate that. You don't know who it's bad for and who it's good for.
And what would you say to someone who is contemplating suicide? Would you agree with them and their reasons, or would you try to talk them out of it?
I would definitely try to talk them out of it. And the only reason why I say that is I ask them where their mindset is at. Do they feel like there's nothing but closed doors? Or they feel like they have no choice but to just leave? So I guess in a short answer is, yeah, I try to talk them out of it. Try to see if they can figure out something else for themselves, or point them to different directions that might help them. And then if that doesn't work, as brutal as it may seem, call the police. Sometimes there's nothing you can do to help them if they have their mindset that way. Usually, the ones who are doing it might drop little hints that you won't even realize until the last minute. They don't really come out forward with it. This is what I'm going to do, from my experience. So I guess if you see any inclination of it, would be an appropriate question, would be just to, if you're their friend or if it's just somebody that you talk to often, even if it's an acquaintance, maybe just to ask them what they're doing or where you plan to go with your life. And then if they mention it, but they don't really see an out, mention a couple of things. Tell them there's a whole bunch of other open doors, and maybe that might help them. That's pretty much it. Thank you.
What is your moral perspective on suicide?
I believe that it's cheating your way out the system, basically.
And what is your religious background? Does that tie into your answer?
I'm agnostic. I believe in a higher power, but I believe like what you put out into the world is what you're going to get back. So if you're not putting great values out and whatnot, you're not going to get any back. So if you put in hard work, it's going to be worth it in the end.
And do you think that certain lifestyles like bad eating habits or not wearing a seatbelt or drinking and driving is the same thing as committing suicide, and why?
Yeah, I believe it's the same thing. It's just slower, but America has gotten us to eat everything because now we don't have time to do family meals, we don't have time to sit down. The quickest thing is we pick up fast food. So in a way, I feel like we have so much science going on that we're living longer and longer and our population is growing. So I feel like America just adds in, or maybe the government adds in just like all these other options of texting while driving even though you're not supposed to, eating food that isn't all that healthy for you but it's quick, cheap, and fast. So it's just kind of a way to lower the population slowly.
Okay. And what would you say to someone who is contemplating suicide? Would you agree with them and their reasons, or would you try to talk them out of it?
It's not worth it. It's really not. Life's hard regardless what you do. If you're successful, you're still gonna have down days. You know, you
gotta like get through it. Find a person, find a hobby, find a service dogs, they help so much. It's you're hurting other people other than just yourself. It might be a relief for yourself, but the people around you are gonna end up being so depressed and so sad. And everyone has a part in the world, so just stay.
The concept of suicide depends on the person's motive, as the people who drink and drive may have the motive to be reckless, or believe that drinking won't affect their driving. People who smoke may not have the motive to end their life, but it may actually be to relieve stress, despite the consequences. Religion can influence people's perspective on suicide, as those who are Christian and Catholic may condemn the act. Those who are atheists may believe that suicide should be acceptable in society for those who are terminally ill. That raises the question, how do you perceive